Here. Wanted to go live and haven't done this for the last few weeks. Been busy with ministry, visiting people, dropping my daughter off at college. So it's good to be back with you. Hope you're doing well. I know for a lot of you, it's been a super busy season. We've kept tabs on you in terms of what's been happening in your ministry. It's been fun to be seeing Facebook posts, text messages, you guys posting in Slack about what's been going on in your ministries. We're celebrating along with you. It's been good to get on a call with several of you over the last couple weeks and just hearing about what's happening. Look forward to continuing to do that here. Hey, wanted to jump in for just a couple minutes today, um, and do a quick training helping you identify what season of ministry that you're in. This actually, I remember this conversation. I had this with our college pastor, Mitchell Johnson, at the Austin Stone here several months ago. We were talking about just kind of seasons of momentum. I made a post here a couple of weeks ago as well, just talking about being able to make sure that you identify what season of ministry that you're in, right? Is it are you building, are you fortifying? Because I think it's important for us, one, to realize that growth um, over long periods of time, one, is not healthy for us and can put us at risk, right? But also seasons of where you're not pushing, not growing, also can and be a risk. So what I want to do for the next few minutes is I want to just talk to you about helping you identify what season of ministry that you are in. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. Share my iPad. See if I can find it. Oh, there it is. Looking at the wrong spot. So there you go. Cool. So what I want to do for the next couple minutes is just walk through being able to identify. So there's a couple ways that I describe this. One is I talk about momentum cycles, right? That you need to recognize what momentum cycle that you're in and recognize one, what you should be doing in the midst of that cycle. And we'll talk about the sides of this circle here, but I also want to talk to you a little bit about one, like what you should be doing when you're in that season or that cycle, but then also how to begin to identify where some of the danger points could be, right? Because there's a temptation in each of the sides of this circle that if you're not careful, there can be a danger point where things can kind of go haywire. So on one side of the momentum cycle is this idea of building, right? So you're building, you're pushing forward, um, you're starting new, right? So this is kind of one side of the momentum cycle, right? So this is you think about like seasons where, man, it's really about growth. It's really about pushing forward. We got a couple ministries right now that we're working with. I think about Chris Millar, you, a couple of you others who are in the season of starting new. And so there's all this energy and all this kind of like focus on building momentum, right? And there's part of you that the fun part of this side is really, this is what I would call like pull momentum. And so pull momentum is that, you ever, like, you're kind of on a roller coaster, right? So that momentum is just like pulling you forward. And really what you need to understand is this is really about building, right? This is that season of like building brand new. And so there's this season where you may be in a ministry kind of context right now where you're in a season of pull momentum. You're in a season of building. You're in a season of starting new. Okay. Now, one of the things you need to recognize though is that that is not healthy um long term. Like you have to actually switch into a different season of momentum. um I call it push momentum. It's the season where you're not necessarily like being pulled, like there's just not the sense of like chaos and just kind of like momentum that's like pulling you, but you're beginning to kind of say, we need to do some pushing. And so in this season is really about this idea of like fortifying, right? So you're fortifying, you're thinking about like systems and structures, and you're beginning really to fortify. And so sometimes in a season where you come off of pull momentum, you have to move into a push momentum season where you begin to slow down and actually create some systems. And really, here's the thing: is there's actually two different like danger points in this. Is the first danger point is kind of like right here, right? And there's a danger point when you've been pushing for a while and you've been building systems. Is what can happen is stagnation can happen, right? So if you're not careful, you can actually begin to kind of stall out right here if you don't recognize a season of saying, man, we've been pushing, we've been fortifying, we've been creating systems and processes to support the chaos that we've created. Now, if you're not careful and recognize that you actually need to shift and go into a different season of ministry, that there can be stagnation that can happen because there you almost have built all the systems and processes that you need to build, and now you actually need to like put some pressure on those systems and actually go into a new cycle of momentum where you begin to go into pull momentum, where you begin to build, where you begin to start something new. So that's kind of the first danger. The second danger is actually down here, and this is the danger of chaos, right? What can happen is you can grow so much where you recognize that where you don't recognize actually is that the chaos doesn't allow you to continue to grow because you have to put some kind of things in place to fortify the chaos, right? So you're moving forward, you're growing, and then you need to actually shift into like, okay, like we actually need to pull back from the chaos and focus less on growing, less on building, and more on fortifying and creating some systems and structures to begin to actually sustain and care for the growth that we've experienced. And so if you're not careful, if you continue to grow, chaos can happen, and there can be this kind of like loss of momentum because there's so much chaos that's around you from growth that actually people are leaving because they're not getting cared for, that ministry is super messy all the time. And so you need to go into a really kind of this push mode. You see a dog out there? Seriously, like every time I record a video, somebody walks by, my dog goes crazy. But you need to go into season of fortifying. So here's the question for you right now: is one is what season are you currently in? Right. So are you in kind of a pull momentum season where you're really about building and starting new? Or are you in a more of a fortifying push momentum season where you need to focus in on building systems and structures and things that will support the growth that you've had? And the second question is are you aware of that season and when that shift needs to happen? Because that's where I see a lot of times is this is accidental, right? So we go into a season of like building, starting new, and all of a sudden there's like this chaos, and we don't recognize of like, okay, we actually need to pull back a little bit and create more push momentum and start to fortify some of these things. Or man, we've been in the season of systems and fortifying for a long time. We actually the threat is stagnation, and we need to start some new things to actually build some momentum that will help us pull us forward moving. And so even for us, it's been interesting for me, even as an organization, to recognize what season we're in. We just got off a season where we were really down on here, right? So we've been working on like fortifying our systems and like creating our content and saying how do we care for kind of the growth that we've had. And now what's happened is I went to our team several months ago and said, really, we need to go into a pull momentum season, right? And so we're really ramping up in terms of like new connections and some marketing things and putting us in front of people to connect with new leaders and new churches because we really feel like that the systems are in place. We don't want to go into a season of stagnation, but now we want to kind of go over that hump and go into some pull momentum and really begin to build and start new. But then there's going to be a point for us where we're going to have to say, we're going to have to actually take the foot off the gas on the new and actually fortify and build some of these kind of systems and processes to continue to sustain the growth that we've experienced as an organization. So one is identify where you're at, understand what season of ministry that you're in, and then also begin to recognize is where the threat is, right? So if you're in building, fortifying, pull momentum, the threat is chaos. If you're in push momentum, fortifying season, then the threat is stagnation. And you need to recognize, and as a leader, begin to see when, like, man, we're kind of stagnating here a little bit, or it's so chaotic, we actually need to kind of pull back a little bit and begin to fortify some of those things. So, encouragement for you is don't be mesmerized. I think there's a temptation, right? Is to look at ministries that are growing and think that we should be in growth mode all the time, that we should be in building mode all the time, that we should be in starting all the time. And that is not a healthy place. It's more healthy for you to recognize what season you're in, begin to identify some of the threats, and be okay. We're in this season, and that's okay. But there's going to be a point in which we're going to need to shift. And me as a leader is going to have to begin to identify what that season is and help lead our people into a new season as well. So I hope that was helpful. Just it's actually been a conversation I've used with several of you to talk one-on-one about recognizing what season you're in. So if you have any questions, go ahead. Just you can drop them in the comments. I'm not going to do any Q&A right now, but if you have a question, I'll loop back around on it on the Facebook group or on the chat, and we can talk a little bit about that, and I can give you explain some things if you have any questions. So hope that was helpful today. Things I've been thinking about for many of you, just identifying what season you're in, looking at the threats of what's in front of you as well. Okay, we will talk to you guys later. Have a good rest of the day.